36 years of running a school building will teach you something that no management book ever puts cleanly into words. The most dangerous person in any difficult conversation is the one who already knows how it ends. Lisa thought she knew how it ended. She was wrong about that. But she sat down with such confidence that I almost admired it. My name is Josh Cook. I am 68 years old, a retired principal from the Greenville County School District here in Greenville, South Carolina. 36 years in that building, from classroom teacher to assistant principal to the corner office with the window that looked out over the football field. I retired in 2021 at 65, with a pension, a handshake from the superintendent, and the quiet conviction that I had earned whatever came next. What came next was Pat's death. My wife Patricia, Pat, passed in October 2022 after a long illness she handled with the specific grace of a woman who had spent 29 years as a librarian and therefore believed that every difficult thing was more manageable if you simply stayed organized. And kept your voice down. We had been married since 1981. 41 years. She was 64 years old. The Greenville County Library on Heritage Green Place flew their flag at half-staff the day of her funeral, which I did not know they were going to do, and which I have never quite been able to think about without needing a moment. After Pat passed, our son Nathan came to me at the reception. Nathan is 41, branch manager at a commercial insurance firm on Verde Boulevard, and put his hand on my shoulder and said the things sons say when they mean it and don't fully understand what they're offering. Dad, come stay with us. We have the room. You shouldn't be in that house alone. I believed him. I sold the house Pat and I had shared for 33 years on Overbrook Drive. I packed carefully. I took her reading glasses from the nightstand. A photograph from 1987 where she is laughing at something off camera and looks exactly like herself, and $187,000 in savings that two people had spent a lifetime being careful about. I moved into Nathan and Lisa's spare room on Devonshire Road in January 2023. The first 10 months were fine, not warm, not wonderful. Fine. The particular fine of a household that has added a person it didn't fully plan for. Dinner together most nights, conversation that stayed in safe channels, a rhythm that functioned without anyone fully committing to it. Lisa is 37 years old and runs a home with the organizational precision of someone who has decided that competence is a personality. She is not unkind. She is managed. Everything in her life is managed, including me. And I was willing to be managed within reason because Nathan had asked me to be there and I trusted that. I fixed things. That is what I do when I am somewhere and something is broken. I fix it. The kitchen faucet, which had been dripping for months, the gutters, which I cleared on a Saturday morning in September without being asked, the loose banister on the back stairs that Nathan had been meaning to get to for 2 years. I bought my own groceries, paid for my own gas, stayed out of rooms I wasn't needed in. I want to be clear about this, because it matters. I was not a burden. I was, by any reasonable measure, an asset. A 68-year-old retired principal with a pension, a separate savings account, and 36 years of not making problems for people is not a burden. He is, in fact, a resource. Lisa had understood this. I just didn't know yet how she planned to use it. February 6th, 2024, a Tuesday. I know the date because I noted it in the small journal I keep on the nightstand, a habit Pat started and I inherited, writing down the day's one thing worth remembering. That Tuesday's entry has 2 words. I'll tell you what they are at the end. I had spent the afternoon repainting the trim on the back fence. Nathan had priced it at $400 from a painter on Angler Drive, and I had done it in an afternoon with $23 of paint from the hardware store on Augusta Road. I came inside, washed the paint off my hands at the kitchen sink, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down at the kitchen table. Lisa walked in. She pulled out the chair directly across from me, with the energy of someone who has been building toward this moment for longer than the moment itself warrants. She sat down, folded her hands on the table, and looked at me with the expression I recognized from 36 years of parent-teacher conferences, the expression of someone who has rehearsed what they are about to say and is now executing the plan. Josh. Not Dad. Not a greeting. Just Josh. I need to talk to you about the financial arrangement here. I set my water glass down. What arrangement? You've been living here for 12 months. A pause, deliberate, prepared. No rent, no utilities, no financial contribution to the household. I fix everything that breaks, I said pleasantly. And I buy my own groceries. And I painted your back fence this afternoon for $23. She did not acknowledge the fence. You're sitting on $187,000. She knew the number. She said it the way you say a number you've been thinking about for a while, with the particular fluency of familiarity. Nathan had told her. My son had told his wife the exact amount of money his father had in savings. I sat with that for a second, filed it, kept my face arranged. That money is Pat's and my retirement, I said. 30 years of being careful with a principal's salary and a librarian's salary. That's what that number is. And this house, Lisa said, spreading her hands across the table in the manner of someone presenting a proposal they consider unanswerable, is what Nathan and I pay for every month. So here is what we'd like to propose. A pause. A contribution of $120,000 toward the household. Think of it as a mortgage investment. I looked at her. Or, she added, and 36 years of watching people deliver ultimatums taught me that the or is always the part they practiced most. You find somewhere else to live. Outside, a car moved slowly down Devonshire Road. One of the Cooper's friends was shooting a basketball in the driveway next door. I have managed parents who screamed, parents who cried, parents who threatened legal action over report card grades. I have handled school board members, union representatives, building inspectors, and one genuinely memorable facilities dispute involving a leaking roof and a very firm position from the district office. I know what a power play looks like. I know what it sounds like. I know what the person running it expects the other person to do. They expect you to panic, or plead, or negotiate from a position of fear. I did none of those things. I finished my water. I rinsed the glass, placed it in the drying rack, and looked at Lisa evenly. Thank you for letting me know, I said. Then I went to my room. I heard her call after me. Josh, we should finish this conversation. The conversation was finished. She just didn't know it yet. I sat on the edge of the bed with Pat's photograph in my hands for a while. Well, I told her, looks like I'm going house hunting. I could almost hear her asking about the square footage. I did not make any decisions that night. I am 68 years old, and I did not spend 36 years running a school building by making decisions at 9 in the evening when my blood was still warm from something. I slept on it. The next morning, I called Ray Dollard. Ray is 70 years old and spent 22 years as my assistant principal at Woodmont High School before he retired and moved to Taylor's 8 miles north of Greenville. He has a pickup truck, an inexhaustible supply of bad jokes I have been pretending to find tiresome for decades, and the loyalty of a man who has been through something difficult alongside you and decided that makes you permanent. He picked up on the second ring. Ray, I need Beverly Cross's number. A pause. Bill's realtor Beverly? Unless you know another Beverly Cross who sells houses. Josh, what happened? I told him. Concisely. Because concisely is how I tell things. Another pause. Longer this time. She gave you an ultimatum. With a spreadsheet energy, yes. And Nathan was not in the room, but he told her the number, which means he knew what she was going to do with it. Ray was quiet for a moment, in the way that old friends are quiet when they are deciding whether to say the thing they are actually thinking. Then, you doing okay? I'm looking for a house, I said. So yes, Beverly Cross had 4 listings in my price range by Thursday morning. Cash purchase, no contingencies, which is the advantage of being a 68-year-old retired principal with $187,000 in a separate account that nobody else has any claim on. I walked through 3 of them that weekend. The first 2 were fine in the way that things are fine when you are looking for something you haven't named yet. The third one stopped me. A 2-bedroom craftsman on Crescent Avenue in the North Main neighborhood of Greenville, 8 minutes from Devonshire Road. The porch needed repainting. The kitchen faucet was loose. Apparently, I am a magnet for those. The backyard had a mature dogwood that was just coming into bud. But that is not why I stopped. Pat and I used to walk Crescent Avenue on Sunday evenings. Before she got ill, before the last years, We would drive to North Main and walk the neighborhood in the particular way of two people who are not walking anywhere specific, but are walking together with purpose. She had pointed at houses on that street more than once. Not wistfully, not with longing, just with the appreciation of a woman who loved a well-kept craftsman and wasn't shy about saying so. I stood on the porch of that house and looked at the dogwood in the yard, and sat with it for a moment. Then I called Beverly. "Make the offer," I said. "Cash. Whatever they're asking." Beverly called back in 2 hours. "Josh, it's yours. I want you to hold on to that word. Yours." At 68 years old, after a year of spare rooms and managed dinners and someone else's mortgage and a Tuesday afternoon ultimatum about money I had spent a lifetime earning, having something that was genuinely, legally, completely yours felt like the first full breath I had taken in 12 months. I told Nathan that evening. He was in the kitchen when I walked in, and the look on his face when I said the words, "I found a place. I'll be out by the 1st of March," was the look of a man who had known this was coming and had talked himself into believing it wasn't. "Dad, you didn't. I found a good place," I said. 8 minutes from here. You can bring the kids on Saturdays." It was just a proposal. He shifted his weight. Lisa didn't mean it as an ultimatum. I looked at my son. This man I had coached through homework and heartbreak and a broken collarbone from a bicycle accident in 1996 that he still blames me for not preventing. "Nathan," I said quietly, "she told me to hand over $120,000 or find somewhere else to live. We both know what that is." He looked at the kitchen counter. "I'm not angry," I said, and I meant it. "I'm just going home." Moving day was March 2nd. A Saturday, Ray came with his truck at 8 in the morning, an unspeakable joke about retirement communities ready before he'd even put it in park, and we loaded my boxes in an hour and 40 minutes. I did not have much. That is one of the clarifying gifts of moving into a spare room. You bring only what matters, and after a year you know exactly what that is. Pat's photograph, her reading glasses, the small journal on the nightstand, my books, my tools, my clothes. A coffee maker that has outlasted 3 kitchen remodels and shows no intention of stopping. Nathan carried 2 boxes to the truck, then stood in the driveway with his hands in his pockets, while Ray and I did the rest. Lisa did not come out of the house. I noted that without judgment, some people cannot face the result of their own decisions while it is still in motion. That is a human limitation, not a character verdict. Right before I got into Ray's truck, Nathan said, "You didn't have to do this, Dad." I buckled my seatbelt. Neither did she. Ray pulled out of the driveway. I didn't look back. I want to be precise about what I felt in that truck, because this is not a story about triumph. I was 68 years old, and I was leaving the house where my grandchildren had started calling me Grandpa Josh, where Cooper had shown me his Lego collections every Saturday morning, where Ava had taken to leaving drawings outside my bedroom door. I was leaving that, and it cost me something real. But a man who has spent 36 years teaching young people that self-respect is not negotiable cannot go home and negotiate his away. The Crescent Avenue house was everything the listing had promised and a few things it hadn't, including a loose board on the back steps that I had fixed by Sunday afternoon. Because apparently this is simply who I am now. On the second morning, I found a note in my mailbox. Folded once, written in the deliberate cursive of someone who learned to write before keyboards made handwriting optional. "Welcome to Crescent Avenue. I have strong opinions about azalea placement, and I make exceptional pound cake. If either of those things appeals to you, I am next door. June Whitfield." I stood at the mailbox and read it twice. Then I smiled. A real one. The kind that arrives before you plan it. June Whitfield turned out to be 71 years old, a retired Greenville County librarian who had worked at the main branch on Heritage Green Place for 27 years. She had known Pat. Not closely. They had served on a district collection committee together sometime around 2014, but enough that when I introduced myself 2 days later across the low fence that separated our front yards and mentioned Pat's name, June looked at me with the particular recognition of someone placing a face they had been told about. Patricia Cook's husband. A recognition crossed her face. "She talked about you. She said you fixed everything in the house yourself and pretended it wasn't impressive." A pause. She was right that it was impressive. I liked June Whitfield immediately. Pat had good judgment about people, and Pat had apparently vouched for me, and that was sufficient. June's note went on the refrigerator that afternoon. It is still there. The first week on Crescent Avenue I kept to myself, the way I do when I am somewhere new, getting the rooms right, learning the sounds the house makes at night, identifying what needs attention and in what order. Ray came for dinner on Thursday and declared the house significantly better than Marcus's guest room, which I accepted as high praise. The second week, June brought pound cake. She set it on the porch railing without knocking, a move of considerable social confidence that I recognized and respected, and left a second note underneath it. Oven temperature matters more than people admit. This one is correct. She was right. It was correct. I settled into Crescent Avenue with the particular ease of a man who has finally stopped holding his breath. And then, 3 weeks after moving day, on a Saturday morning in late March, my phone rang. Nathan's voice had none of the careful management of the Devenger Road months. It was stripped down to something younger and less composed. "Dad, I need to talk to you. Go ahead. We lost the Harrington account." A pause. It was our biggest commercial client, $280,000 in annual premium. The renewal meeting didn't. I mishandled the renewal, and they moved their business. My regional director is involved now. My bonus is gone for the year, and the branch numbers are... He stopped. "Dad, we're in a difficult position." I sat in the kitchen chair on Crescent Avenue and looked at the morning light on the backyard dogwood. I had known this was possible. Not this account, not this week, but the shape of it. The credit card statements I had glimpsed moving off the counter during my months on Devenger Road. The conversations that stopped when I walked in. Nathan had been managing something he didn't want me to see. This was what he'd been managing. "What do you need, Nathan?" We need help." "Dad, I know what Lisa said was wrong. I know that. And I know you didn't have to leave. And I know what I should have done when she had that conversation with you. And I didn't do it. And His voice caught. "I'm asking for help." "I hear you," I said. "We could really use..." "Nathan, I'm going to say something and I need you to hear it clearly." My voice was the voice I used for 36 years when something important needed to be said without confusion. "I love you. I love Cooper and Ava. That has not changed and will not change. What has changed is that I live on Crescent Avenue now, in a house that is mine, and my savings are mine, and that is the arrangement going forward." Silence. "What I will do," I said, "is come over on Sunday, not to write a check. To sit at the table with you and Lisa and help you build a list of the right calls to make. The right sequence of steps for two people who are in a tight spot and need someone to help them think clearly. That I can do. That costs me nothing but time." Another silence. Then, quietly, "Why would you do that?" After what she said. "Because you're my son," I said, "and because holding on to it doesn't help anyone. But Nathan, the help I'm giving you is my time and my experience, not my savings. Those are mine. Are we clear?" A long pause. "Yeah, Dad, we're clear. Sunday at noon. I'll bring lunch." Sunday was quiet. Nathan opened the door before I knocked. He had been watching for me, which I noted without comment. Lisa was in the kitchen. She turned when I walked in, and the expression on her face was the particular expression of someone who had been practicing an apology and was now deciding whether to give the rehearsed version or the real one. I waited. She chose the real one. "Josh." Her voice was careful and unguarded at the same time. "What I said to you in February was wrong. Not just strategically wrong. Wrong. You had done nothing but help this family, and I talked to you like a line item. I'm sorry." I looked at her for a moment. "I appreciate that," I said. "I accept it, and I'm not here with resentment, Lisa. I'm here because Nathan's my son, and because Cooper left one of his drawings outside my door on the day I moved out, and I've had it on my refrigerator next to June's note ever since." Something in her shoulders released. We sat at the table, the same table where she had delivered the ultimatum with her hands folded and her proposal prepared, and I spent 2 hours helping them see their situation clearly. Not rescuing, not writing checks, helping two people in a difficult position identify the correct sequence of steps, The conversation Nathan needed to have with his regional director. The budget line items worth cutting first. The timeline for stabilizing the branch numbers. The short-term options that didn't involve asking their father for money. I did not write a check. I did not offer to write a check. And nobody asked me to, because we had been clear about that on Saturday morning, and Nathan had apparently relayed the clarity to Lisa. At the end of the afternoon, Nathan walked me to my car. He put his hand out for a handshake. A Nathan thing. Formal in the particular way of men who feel things deeply and don't know what else to do with their hands. And I shook it and held it a second longer than a handshake requires. "Thank you, Dad. Take care of your family," I said. "And call me when Cooper's baseball season starts. I have opinions about his swing that he has been ignoring for 2 years." Nathan laughed. The real kind. If you've been listening for a while and want stories like this to keep coming, it really helps if you hit that like button and subscribe. 97% of people never do. But it's what keeps this whole thing running. So, thank you. Now I want to say something directly to everyone listening, because there are things in this story that matter beyond what happened to me. The first is something most people do not know. When an elderly parent moves into an adult child's home, even without a lease, even without any written agreement, they have legal residential rights. In South Carolina, a person living in a home by permission of the owner is considered a licensee. Removing them requires proper written notice to vacate, typically 30 days, before any legal action can be taken. Lisa's ultimatum, hand over the money or get out, was not only wrong, it was legally uninformed. I knew this. I had spoken to my attorney on Pleasantburg Drive within 48 hours of that Tuesday conversation. I chose not to weaponize that knowledge. I used the time it gave me to find a house instead. The second thing is this. A life care agreement is a legal document that specifies the financial and living arrangements between an elderly parent and an adult child. Rent, utilities, household contributions, the parent's rights within the home, conditions for ending the arrangement. It protects both parties. Its absence in my situation meant that Lisa's demand for $120,000 had no legal foundation whatsoever. My savings were mine, in my account, with no lien, no claim, no mechanism by which she could compel a contribution. She was asking. I was not obligated to answer. If you are an older parent considering moving in with an adult child, have the conversation about a life care agreement first, not because you don't trust them, because clarity at the beginning prevents exactly this kind of Tuesday afternoon in the kitchen. The third thing is simpler. Keep your money in your own name, in your own account, with no joint access given to anyone who has not earned that level of trust over a long period of time. Retirement savings are not a household resource. They are a life's work. They belong to the person who built them. It has been 6 weeks since moving day. June came over last Thursday with a 2-pound cake. Different recipe. She specified because she believes in iteration. And we sat on the porch and talked about the Greenville County Library's renovation project on Heritage Green Place, and whether the new reading garden in the courtyard was going to be planted correctly, which June had strong opinions about. Pat would have had the same opinions. I told June that. She received it with the particular quiet dignity of someone who has been told something true and knows it. Cooper came over with Nathan last Saturday. He spent 45 minutes showing me the Lego set he'd brought in his backpack and explaining the structural logic of his design choices with the seriousness of a small engineer. I told him about the footings on the back fence repair I'd done that morning. He found this genuinely interesting, which confirmed my assessment of his character. The drawing he left outside my door is still on the refrigerator, next to June's note. The journal entry from February 6 has 2 words. I mentioned them at the beginning, and I owe you the answer. It says, bought house. I wrote it that night before I called Ray, because I already knew what I was going to do. 36 years of running a school building means that when someone sits across from you and delivers a prepared speech and waits for your response, you already know, in the first 30 seconds, whether the speech worked. It hadn't worked, and I already knew what came next. On Sunday evenings, I walk Crescent Avenue the way Pat and I used to, past the old houses with their deep porches, through the North Main neighborhood that she loved for reasons she always described as self-evident. The dogwood in my backyard is in full bloom now, which it was not when I bought the house, and which feels, in the particular irrational way that beautiful things feel sometimes, like something arranged. June waves from her porch when I pass. I wave back. The journal entry for this Sunday will say something like, "Good evening," which, at 68 years old, on a street Pat loved, in a house that is mine, it genuinely is. If you liked this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being a part of this.